Welcome to another show. This week, I'm going to count down another top 5 Elvis leading ladies. Deborah Paget.
I don't reckon you could have known about this, but me and Kathy got married about 3 months ago.
Love Me Tender. Both as on-screen personas, and Elvis Presley himself famously courted now famous names in the industry, from tying the knot with Priscilla Beaulieu to an extramarital affair with Linda Thompson. But it seems Deborah Paget might have been both the start of this wild romance life and a continuing theme among all Elvis sought a relationship with. Elvis and Paget were in Love Me Tender together in 1956. In the musical Western, Elvis was not the leading man. That title went instead to Richard Egan, though Elvis drew immense excitement for his involvement in the project. However, playing husband and wife brought Elvis and Paget together in a way the rock and roll star would not be able to shake years later. Elvis Presley is youngest brother Clint Reno, husband of Kathy Reno, played by Deborah Paget. However, Kathy had previously been in a relationship with Vance, played by Egan. This turbulent and tangled web of feelings provides emotional conflict to the story against the backdrop of shootouts and Western gunslinging practices. Indeed, Kathy actually still harbors feelings for Vance in the film, a sentiment that is hidden well but that Elvis's Clint picks up on and drives Clint to acts of jealousy. This would actually be the second meeting between Elvis and Paget.
I play the type I dig is someone like the Deborah Paget.
I can't hear you. I'm next to you, but I can't hear you.
I'm third round.
The first being the Milton Bull Show. But when they crossed paths again as colleagues, she was well established in her career, and Love Me Tender was the King's first film project of that scope. While the allure of the first film might be enough to leave any newcomer starstruck, Elvis reportedly took to Paget instantly, repeatedly flirted with her, and followed her along like a high schooler with a crush. Elvis Presley has been called childish by those who knew him, a trait apparently shared with the object of his affections, Deborah Paget, who said of herself, "I was very shy, very quiet, and very immature for my age. I was in my very early 20s, but I was emotionally more like a 16-year-old. Elvis and I just sort of came together like a couple of children, really." When they reached the point in their relationship where they introduced each other to their families, Pagets accepted Elvis as one of their own. Though when he voiced a desire to marry Paget, they did not approve and the courtship ceased there. At least, it partly did. Express posits that King's affections for Paget became foundational to the feelings he experienced in subsequent relationships, noting a physical resemblance between Paget and Joan Blackman as well as Priscilla Presley herself. What do you think of this theory? Priscilla Presley reportedly copied Deborah Paget's unique hairstyle from this film to attract Elvis in 1959. Although originally slated to be an inexpensive B picture, it was upgraded to an A feature with a $1 million budget after Elvis Presley was signed to star. Possibly the first American film to use a squib hit on an actor, using an explosive under clothing with a blood pack to simulate a bullet hit. The part of Clint Reno was originally offered to 20th Century Fox contract players Robert Wagner and Jeffrey Hunter, and also Cameron Mitchell before Elvis Presley got it. He wasn't a Fox contract player, but was under contract to independent producer Hal B. Wallace, who loaned him to Fox for this picture. The title song Love Me Tender was taken from the Civil War ballad Orleans, written by W. W. Fosdick and George R. Polton. That song first appeared on the screen in the 1936 film Come and Get It, sung by Francis Farmer. It was adopted, almost from its beginning, as the school song of the U.S. Army Military Academy at West Point. In its opening weekend film it shot to number 2 in Variety's list. Only James Dean's film Giant had more viewers. Elvis memorized the entire script instead of just his own dialogue for the movie. This is one of only 2 films in which Elvis Presley's character dies, and the only one in which he dies on screen. The other is Flaming Star.
Love me tender, love me sweet, never let me go.
Stella Stevens.
From Tahiti, from Samoa, wearing skirts made of grass. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
squirrels don't only have ears, they got hands, feet, broomsticks, and everything else.
Stevens starred with Elvis in Girls, Girls, Girls. Ross Carpenter, Elvis, is a Hawaii-based fishing guide and sailor who enjoys boating and sailing out on the sea. When he finds out his boss is retiring to Arizona, he seeks to find a way to buy the Westwind, a boat that he built with his father. Ross is caught in a love triangle with two women, childish, insensitive club singer Robin Stevens and sweet Laurel Goodwin. When Wesley Johnson makes advances on Laurel, Ross punches him out. Wesley owns the boat, so Ross thereby loses it. Laurel, however, is not who she pretends to be. She is an heiress getting over a bad breakup and searching for someone who doesn't love her for her money. She secretly buys the Westwind for him, but Ross' male pride won't allow him to take it. Ross has to choose between her and Robin. Hollywood bad girl and Playboy pinup Stella Stevens revealed why she didn't want to make the film with the king and then regretted it even more afterwards. She is best known today for the Poseidon Adventure and the Nutty Professor. She dropped out of school to head off to Hollywood and was soon under contract to 20th Century Fox and then Paramount from 1959, who would drag her, almost kicking and screaming, onto screen with Elvis. Stella's career was a mass of contradictions. In 1960, she won the Golden Globe for New Star of the Year, Actress, but she was also Playboy's Centerfold Playmate of the Month that January. I was sent the script by Paramount to read, and I thought, he's from Memphis, and so am I. That's a good idea to put us together. So I read the script. I threw it across the room. I thought, what a piece of crap, I'm not going to be in this. Even when the studio threatened to blacklist her, Stella would not back down. She added, I said, I'll starve. I don't care. My child will starve because of you, and we will die because of you, because I will not do this junk. So they said, please reconsider, and they promised that my next film would be with Montgomery Clift. And I said, oh, well, yes. Okay, I'll do the Elvis picture. It's only 6 days' work, and I'll just forget about it. Stella Stevens said that Elvis Presley was very pleasant to work with. Even though they were both from Memphis, they didn't relate to each other much. One day I said, Elvis, honey, why do you do this crap? He pondered and said, don't knock success, Stella, which is true. The odds against getting anywhere in the movies are so great that if you realized beforehand, you'd stay home. It's because of this friction. She loved Elvis but hated the script that gave her such good on-screen chemistry with the king. Elvis Presley performs Return to Sender in the club. It would be his final UK and US chart topper from a movie in which he starred. This is the only one of Elvis Presley's feature film to be nominated for a Golden Globe Award. According to the Book of Lists 2 by Irving Wallace et al., this was the most widely televised of all Elvis Presley's films. This was Laurel Goodwin's first acting role. She's mostly known for her role as Yeoman J.M. Colt in the first pilot for Star Trek, The Cage, that starred Jeffrey Hunter and Leonard Nimoy but was rejected by NBC. Goodwin was one of many Star Trek alumni to have co-starred in a movie with Elvis Presley. Shelly Fab.
I need a girl to make my life worth living. Yes, I'm happy.
Say, you are a tiger, aren't you?
Well, you wait right here and just give me a minute to slip out of my suntan lotion.
She has the distinction of being in not just one, not just two, but 3 Elvis Presley movies, which puts her near the top of this list. Girl Happy, Spin Out, and Clam Bake. For the purpose of this video, we'll concentrate on Girl Happy, since it's the one that did the biggest box office of the 3 and is the first one to feature Fab, where she has the best chemistry with nightclub singer Rusty Wells. Presley and his band have just closed their engagement at the club where they work in Chicago and are about ready to leave for their annual spring break trip to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. That is, until the club's owner, Big Frank, Harold Stone, extends their stay at his club, foiling the band's plans for some sun and fun in Florida. At the same time, Big Frank's daughter, college student Valerie, Shelly Fab, also takes her spring break in Lauderdale with her friends. which worries her father to no end. So at the suggestion of Rusty, Big Frank hires Rusty and his band to make the trip to Lauderdale to look after Valerie to make sure she stays out of trouble. The song "The Meanest Girl in Town" was one of the only songs not composed for this movie. It had been written for Bill Haley and the Comets and recorded by then in 1964 under the title "Yes, She's Evil." For reasons unknown, several of Elvis Presley's songs are slightly sped up, making his voice sound higher than usual. This is most noticeable on the title track. This error appears to have originated in the recording studio, as the RCA soundtrack album retains the sped-up versions of the songs. A recording of Girl Happy, mastered at the proper speed, would not be released until the 1990s. The explanation came afterwards that it was intentional and that it was supposed to give the title track an upbeat feeling that it lacked apparently in the original version. It has to be reminded that this soundtrack was recorded at the height of Beatlemania in June 1964 and that the record company tried to give some extra youth to Elvis by speeding up the tape. Also, 1964 is the first year Elvis did not reach the top 10 with any of the 6 singles he released that year. Even though the film was marketed as a beach movie, and Elvis appeared shirtless in prior films, he refused to go shirtless again in a movie. He's wearing long-sleeve shirts throughout, even while water skiing. Gary Crosby, son of legendary singer Bing Crosby, played Elvis's friend Andy.
What was it like to work with Elvis Presley?
It was absolutely fabulous. I hadn't been a huge, gigantic, screaming Elvis Presley fan. I liked him, and I liked a lot of his records. Who I was in love with was Jimmy Stewart. I had sort of somewhat a different sensibility, I guess. Okay, did you have a romance with him? Well, no, I didn't. I had actually just become married.
Joan OBrien.
Relax. Kick your shoes off, baby, relax. Here we are.
Dorothy!
Mom, Dad.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. We were just gonna have some iced tea. Would you care to join us?
Get me my gun, Emma.
If you don't like iced tea, I could go get some beer.
Let go of me! He's getting away!
You can't shoot him, Henry. Daddy, you can't shoot him.
What do you mean
It Happened at the World's Fair features Elvis as Mike Edwards, a crop duster with his love interest, Diane Warren, played by Joan OBrien. Pilot Mike Edwards finds himself in a dilemma. His partner and friend, Danny, has overspent the money that Mike had set aside to pay their debts. Without it, their aircraft called Bessie, a Boeing Stearman Model 75 crop duster, is taken by the local sheriff. If Mike and Danny do not get the money in a week, Bessie will be auctioned off to the highest bidder. One of 4 films that Elvis Presley and Kurt Russell have in common. Russell appeared in the Elvis movie It Happened at the World's Fair. He portrayed Presley in the TV movie Elvis. He portrayed Presley again, voice only, in Forrest Gump. And he played an Elvis impersonator in 3,000 Miles to Graceland. In It Happened at the World's Fair, Elvis asks Russell to kick him hard in the shin, for which Elvis pays him 25 cents. In 3,000 Miles to Graceland, this scene is parodied when a young boy runs on screen and kicks Russell, in full Elvis attire, in the shin. Vicky Tiu, the child actress who plays Sue Lynn, said that, while Elvis Presley was a joy to work with, she hated working with director Norman Taurog. For a scene where Sue Lynn cries, Taurog got real tears from Vicky by telling her that her beloved grandmother had just died. While directing the movie Skippy, for which he won an Oscar, Taurog used a similar dirty trick to get real tears from his nephew, Jackie Cooper, by having his assistant pretend to shoot Cooper's dog. Did Joan OBrien ever date Elvis? Their on-screen chemistry was evident, but it's essential to note that their relationship remained platonic off-screen too. Joan OBrien was not romantically linked to Elvis in real life, but their portrayal of a couple in the movie left an impression on audiences. Barbara Eden.
Every man has a flaming star over his shoulder.
Stay where you are, Pierce.
You heard, Dread Indian.
Any harm comes to that girl and you're dead in a minute. Just keep talking, Ford. You'll be dead now.
Eden starred with Elvis in 1960's Flaming Star, which featured one of E's better acting performances. Pacer Burton is the son of a Kiowa mother and a Texan father working as a rancher. His family, including a half-brother, Clint, live a typical life on the Texan frontier. Life becomes anything but typical when a nearby tribe of Kiowa begin raiding neighboring homesteads. Pacer soon finds himself caught between the two worlds, part of both, but belonging to neither. Barbara Steele walked off the picture on the third day of shooting after an argument with director Don Siegel. The studio threatened to sue her, and she told them to go ahead because she wasn't coming back. They never did. She was then replaced by Barbara Eden. Eden wrote in Genie Out of the Bottle. The actor was, of course, familiar with the king of rock and roll and his performances on The Ed Sullivan Show, which her mother never missed. I was struck by his intense star quality and sex appeal. She wrote, her impressions of Presley were of no help when she met him in the flesh. By now, I'd met countless stars, but the prospect of meeting the great Elvis Presley and working alongside him was still daunting, Eden detailed. But Eden had a card up her sleeve she didn't even know about. As it turns out, Presley was a fan of Broken Arrow, particularly of Michael Ansara's Cochise. That broke the ice between us, Eden wrote. Eden was surprised Presley had any spare time to catch Western series on TV, but he explained the show helped soothe him. He told me that he couldn't leave his hotel room at night for fear of being mobbed, so he stayed locked inside and watched TV for most of the night. She recalled, that conversation opened the door for many subsequent heart-to-hearts, giving Eden a unique glimpse into what went on in the mind of one of America's greatest icons of all times. That answer afforded me a poignant insight into Elvis's world, one that surprised me. She reflected, Elvis Presley was inducted into the Los Angeles Indian Tribal Council by Native American Waneota after portraying the son of an Indian and a white settler in this film. Andy Warhol's famous diptych of Elvis Presley as a cowboy came from a shot in this movie. Robert Wagner says in his memoirs he was offered the role of Elvis Presley's half-brother but turned it down because nobody ever paid attention to any other man in an Elvis Presley picture. Colonel Tom Parker made sure of that. Steve Forrest was cast in his place. Did Barbara Eden ever date Elvis Presley? I was struck by his intense star quality and sex appeal. She wrote, her impressions of Presley were of no help when she met him in the flesh. By now, I'd met countless stars, but the prospect of meeting the great Elvis Presley and working alongside him was still daunting, Eden said. That conversation opened the door for many subsequent heart-to-hearts, giving Eden a unique glimpse into what went on in the mind of one of America's greatest icons of all times. That answer afforded me a poignant insight into Elvis's world, one that surprised me. She reflected. Barbara Eden soon discovered she had another thing in common with Elvis Presley, a preoccupation with their weight. Despite my meager diet, my battle against putting on weight was ongoing, and I told Elvis as much. She wrote in Genie Out of the Bottle. To her surprise, Presley disclosed his own fears. I said, well, you don't have a problem. You're very lean. And he said, no, my mama was heavy, and I take after her. It shows in my face, so I have to be really careful, Eden told Elvis Australia in 2008. Apparently, Eden stayed faithful to her husband, Michael Ansara. That was our show for today. What did you think? Are these your favorite Elvis leading ladies? Do you have another that you think should be on this list? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section, and, while you're at it, I'd be honored if you subscribe to my channel, click the bell to stay informed, and check out my Carl Vincent Vampire Hunter franchise also in the comments. Until next time, this is Axel and for Kevin Given saying live long and prosper, may the force be with you and keep reaching for the stars.